Today we worked on the decapitating canary again, and this time we have created a body for the bird. This is made up of 3 wire circles that are connected together with a thinner piece of wire, which creates a shell for this bird, or a skeleton. Then this skeleton is then covered in the material which we've used here, which is a yellow fleece, and then the inside of the bird is then filled with foam, which bulks out the bird, creating a much plumper appearance. So we worked on that creation today of the body, and also I began to experiment with ways of how the head could be removed from the body. And so some methods that I have started working on are using a larger piece of dowel for the head, the larger spring which I talked about in the previous video, and a wooden chamber which the spring will be able to fit inside, and the dowel will go on the top there as well. I have developed a different prototype idea for how the head will be removed, which I will now like to show you. This is the prototype idea that I mentioned that could be potentially replicated on the canary's body. I will give you a short rundown of the materials that I've been used for this prototype and what they will represent on the finished canary. So here we have a piece of wood that represents the back of the bird. I used a wood boring drill to drill down into the piece of wood, roughly 6 centimeters in depth. Once I did that, I then cut a slot into it. This would be able to support the protruding piece of wood that is glued onto this piece of dowel. This dowel will be the piece that has the bird's head attached to the top of it. And I am using the large spring, which I talked about in the previous video, that will be able to launch the canary's head from the body. So we start by setting up this prototype by placing the spring inside the 6 centimeter hole. I place it quite close to the gap that's been cut into the wood. Then with the piece of dowel, I then place that inside the hole and push down, so the protruding piece of wood is now inside the gap, and when supported by the thumb, this is able to lock the head in position until an appropriate time when it can be released. So once feeling ready to test the prototype, I then place the spring inside the 6 centimeter hole, making sure it's located in the correct position. Then I use the piece of dowel and place that firmly onto the spring. Then using my thumb, I place my thumb over the protruding piece of wood, and then at a suitable point my thumb can be released and the bird's head is launched from the body. Having tested the prototype, I was satisfied with the result. I was pleased by the fact that the piece of dowel was able to be supported by a thumb being placed over the protruding piece of wood. I was pleased that that was able to lock the head in position, and also I was pleased that the use of a larger spring was able to give a more satisfying launch from the body. I feel that the use of the wooden chamber as well is appropriate, because the wood will create less friction when the dowel is sliding up the chamber, whereas compared to using foam, for example, it will create quite a bit of friction, and the head will not be able to successfully be detached from the body, leading to a messy detachment on stage, which would not be satisfactory. So I will continue the use of the wooden chamber inside the Canary's body, and I will see what the further results are that this design brings me. I would also like to continue using the strong spring as well, because I was very satisfied with how it was able to launch the head from the body to such a height. I think that will be quite humorous for the audience and will look very effective on stage. However, this design I have my concerns about, because I believe that if this was replicated on the actual Canary that will feature in the song Pulled, I think the audience would be able to see that the head would be removed and it would lose some of its subtlety. I also believe that the amount of strength that has to be exerted on keeping the head in position would perhaps be a struggle for the actress playing Wednesday, as she will be required to sing at that moment as well. Combining both the pressure on the thumb and singing at the same time may be quite challenging for her, so I have my concerns about whether this prototype will actually be effective. However, I have been granted the permission by our tutor to test this prototype out in a rehearsal of the song Pulled to determine whether this will actually be an appropriate method that we can carry forward, which I will be looking forward to seeing what the results are.